Commander Kale stood at the edge of the landing platform, staring at the horizon of Litheria. The planet stretched out like a living painting, with glowing forests that shimmered in shades of blue and green, rivers that floated above the ground, and mountains that glistened under twin suns. His boots pressed against the metal platform of the human shuttle, but his eyes never left the breathtaking view. This was his first mission on an alien world, and though he had faced countless battles on distant planets, nothing prepared him for the quiet beauty of Litheria. The humans had been invited by the Litherian High Council to discuss a possible alliance against the Zarvex fleet, a dangerous force moving across the galaxy. Kale's role was simple yet important: show that humanity could fight, think, and survive alongside other civilizations. The doors of the shuttle opened with a smooth hiss, and Kale stepped forward. The air here was strange but not unpleasant, fresh with a faint scent of minerals and flowers he could not name. The platform extended into a towering bridge of crystals that led straight to the Grand Hall, a structure that seemed to float above the landscape, held in place by energy fields that pulsed like the heartbeat of the planet. As Kale approached, he saw the hall's doors open. The frame was carved from a single piece of glowing crystal, and strange symbols floated in the air around it. Beyond the doors, alien figures moved gracefully. Their forms were diverse, some tall and elegant with translucent skin, others small and agile with multiple arms. Each one wore intricate robes that shimmered in the light, and their eyes reflected wisdom and caution. Kale's heart beat steadily, but his instincts sharpened. He was a soldier trained to notice threats, but he sensed none here, not yet. All he felt was the weight of expectation. He was not just a human soldier. He represented his entire species. At the far end of the hall, a figure moved with unmatched grace. Princess Elira, heir to Litheria's throne, floated slightly above the ground, her robe glowing faintly in colors that shifted like a living rainbow. She had long silver hair that seemed to float around her head, and eyes deep as the night sky. As she turned, her gaze landed on Kale. For a brief moment, time seemed to pause. Elira's advisors whispered behind her, but she did not hear them. There was something about the human warrior, the way he carried himself, calm but alert, strong but not boastful, that drew her attention. She had met many dignitaries, warriors, and scholars, but none like him. Kale entered the hall with measured steps. The floor beneath him was polished crystal, reflecting the alien light above. The room was massive, stretching farther than he could see, with platforms floating at different heights. Light beams curved through the air like rivers of energy, illuminating the elegant alien architecture. It was both alien and familiar, the work of a civilization that had mastered technology and beauty alike. Whispers followed him. The Litherians were curious. Humans were rare visitors, and Kale's reputation as a commander preceded him. He had fought in the Terran Wars, led daring missions in uncharted space, and survived situations that many believed impossible. Yet here, among beings who could manipulate energy with a thought, he was just one warrior. The High Council awaited him in the center of the hall. Kyle approached with his hands at his sides, his movements precise. Every eye in the hall followed him, but he did not falter. He knew that courage was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Princess Elira moved closer to the council. She had never expected to be intrigued by a human, yet the moment she saw Kale, she felt a strange pull. His presence was different from the dignitaries and soldiers she had known. There was something honest in the way he stood, something that demanded respect without demanding attention. "Commander Kale," a voice spoke in perfect English, one of the Litherian translators. "We welcome you to Litheria. Your journey has been long, and your people honor our invitation." Kale bowed slightly, not out of submission but out of respect. "Princess Elira, High Council, I thank you for your welcome. Humanity hopes to build understanding and friendship with Litheria." His voice was calm, carrying authority without arrogance. The princess's lips curved into a faint smile. She studied him carefully, noting the calm confidence in his tone, the clarity in his eyes, and the subtle readiness in his posture. It was rare to find someone who could hold their own in a room filled with beings as advanced as Litherians. The council led him on a ceremonial tour of the hall. As they moved, Kale noticed small details. The walls were etched with the history of Litheria. depicting wars, alliances, and the rise of the princess's family. The energy beams that floated through the hall were not just decorative. They were power conduits capable of amplifying technology and thought. Cale marveled at the ingenuity but kept his focus on the people. When they reached a chamber filled with floating crystals, a sudden tremor shook the hall. A low hum vibrated through the floor and lights flickered. Alarms rang and a group of engineers rushed to a control panel. Cale instinctively stepped forward. "What is happening?" he asked. "A minor energy surge," one of the Litherian engineers replied, eyes wide. "It could destabilize the floating platforms if not corrected quickly." Without hesitation, Cale moved to the control panel. He studied the readouts, noting patterns in the energy fluctuations. Using a combination of logic, intuition, and quick thinking, he adjusted the flow of power. The hum subsided and the lights stabilized. The engineers exchanged impressed glances. Princess Elira watched quietly, her eyes reflecting awe and curiosity. She had observed many warriors, but few acted without hesitation. Few remained calm in moments of sudden danger. Cale's actions were decisive but unshowy. He did not seek praise, only resolution. The council members nodded approvingly. "You have a keen mind, Commander," said one elder. "Your people may be young in galactic terms, but your ingenuity is evident." Cale merely nodded. "I do what I must to keep people safe. That is all." Elira's gaze lingered on him longer than polite conversation required. She felt an unusual warmth, a connection that defied explanation. The human warrior, stranger to her world, had shown qualities that resonated deeply within her: bravery, intelligence, and honor. The rest of the tour continued smoothly. Cale observed alien soldiers training, diplomats negotiating, and scholars experimenting with energy fields. Everything was alien, yet he found ways to understand patterns, predict movements, and see opportunities for improvement. Litherians noticed this and exchanged murmurs of approval. By the time the tour ended, Cale had not only impressed the council, but had also piqued the curiosity of Princess Elira. She was fascinated not just by his skill, but by his presence, calm, steady, and unpretentious. She wondered how such a human could exist, so far from Litheria, yet so capable. As the sun of Litheria dipped behind floating mountains casting golden light into the hall, Cale stood near the entrance, gazing at the horizon. He did not yet know what challenges awaited him on this world, but he understood one thing clearly. This mission would test him in ways he had never imagined, not just in battle but in diplomacy, trust, and perhaps in matters of the heart. Princess Elira lingered nearby, pretending to study a crystal map. Her mind, however, remained on the human warrior who had entered her grand hall and somehow, in that first moment, captured her attention. And so, the stage was set. Two worlds, two destinies had collided in a single glance. Litheria awaited Cale's skill and courage, and perhaps unknowingly, his heart would leave a mark on the princess as well. The adventure had begun. The morning sun of Litheria cast soft beams through the crystal windows of the grand hall, painting the floors in dancing light. Commander Cale stood at the edge of the central platform, watching the Litherian warriors train. Their movements were fluid, almost like a dance, yet lethal in precision. Cale had seen many alien armies in his career, but Litheria's warriors combined grace with deadly skill in a way humans rarely achieved. Princess Elira appeared silently beside him, her robe shimmering with soft light. "They are skilled," she said, her voice calm but edged with pride. "Every Litherian must train from birth. It is our way to protect our people." Cale nodded, watching a pair of young warriors practice energy sparring. "Your training is impressive," he replied. "But strength alone does not win battles. Strategy, adaptability, and teamwork matter as much as skill." Elira tilted her head, intrigued. "You are different from other humans I have met," she said. "You speak as if you have faced many battles, yet you do not boast." "Why is that?" Cale's lips curved into a faint smile. "Boasting does not win respect, Princess. Actions do. You can talk about victories, but only deeds matter when the fight comes." Elira's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Humans were rare visitors, and most of the ones she met lacked this quiet confidence. There was something about Cale that made her want to understand him better. Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden chime of the High Council's announcement system. A ceremonial challenge was beginning in the training grounds, a traditional Litherian test of skill and strategy. Kale was invited to participate as a demonstration of human capability. He agreed without hesitation. The challenge was simple. Guide a small team through a complex energy maze while avoiding traps and simulated attackers. Kale studied the maze carefully. His human instincts told him to observe first, plan second, then act decisively. The maze was a swirling structure of floating platforms and energy fields, changing configuration every few seconds. Lithirian warriors darted through with ease, their bodies moving like liquid. But Kale noticed patterns. He pointed out weak spots in the energy flow to his temporary team, combining Lithirian agility with human tactical thinking. The team moved quickly, avoiding hazards and completing the course faster than expected. The crowd of dignitaries erupted in cheers. Even Elira's lips curved into a rare, impressed smile. "You are remarkable," she said softly. "Your mind works differently from ours, yet it complements our abilities perfectly." Kale inclined his head. "And yours, Princess, is no less impressive. Leadership is more than skill with a weapon. You command attention, inspire respect, and understand people. That is true strength." For a moment their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. Both were warriors in their own way. Kale with human strategy and experience, Elira with wisdom and command. Respect had been formed quickly, and with it, a subtle spark of connection. Later, Elira took Kale on a private tour of the palace's historical archives. The walls were etched with glowing symbols that depicted Lithiria's history, battles fought, alliances forged, and the rise of the princess's lineage. Kale walked slowly, his eyes scanning the stories, nodding thoughtfully. "These histories, they show great victories," he said, "but also great losses. Your people have endured much." Elira nodded, her expression serious. "Yes, Lithiria has faced threats across centuries. Each generation must be ready to protect what we love. That is why your arrival is so important, Commander Kale. Humanity's courage may help us survive challenges we cannot face alone." Kale's chest tightened slightly. This was no idle praise. Elira spoke with sincerity, recognizing the stakes of their alliance. "I promise, Princess. Humanity will stand with Lithiria. We fight not only for survival, but for what is right." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden tremor. Alarms rang through the palace. A section of the energy core that powered part of the city had destabilized. Engineers rushed to the scene, but panic rippled among the citizens outside the palace walls. Kyle's instincts kicked in immediately. "Show me the problem," he said, following Elira to the control chamber. The engineers pointed to the fluctuating energy readouts, the lines of power shifting dangerously. "It could cascade into a citywide collapse if we do not act quickly," one engineer warned. Kyle studied the diagrams. Human logic and battlefield experience guided his actions. "Redirect the primary flow to the secondary stabilizers, then channel excess energy into the outer buffers," he instructed. "Elira, give me a hand with the secondary conduits." Together they moved through the chamber, adjusting energy valves, rerouting power, and monitoring fluctuations. Sweat beaded Kyle's forehead, but his hands moved with precision. Elira followed his lead, using her knowledge of Lithirian systems to execute the plan. After tense minutes, the hum of the energy core steadied. Lights returned to normal, and the floating platforms outside stabilized. Engineers clapped, and citizens watching from a distance cheered. Elira turned to Kale, her eyes wide with admiration. "You acted without hesitation. You did not panic even when everything was at risk." "That is rare." Kyle shrugged lightly. "Training helps, Princess, but so does believing that people's lives are worth protecting. That is always worth acting for." Elira studied him, fascinated by his humility and focus. Most warriors she had known prized strength, skill, or titles. Kale seemed to prize something deeper, the safety and trust of those around him. In that moment, her respect for him grew, and a quiet connection began to form. The day continued with formal discussions between the human delegation and Lithirian council members. Kale listened carefully, contributing insights from his experience while learning about Lithirian culture and strategies. The exchange was productive, but it was the shared moments with Elira that lingered in his mind. During a brief break, Elira invited Kale to walk through the palace gardens. Exotic plants floated in midair, their petals glowing softly. Streams of water flowed against gravity, forming shapes that twisted and turned in midair. Kale's eyes followed the flowing rivers in fascination. "This is beautiful," he said. "Your world. It is alive in ways humans can only imagine." Elira smiled faintly. "Letheria teaches us balance. Nature, technology, and people must coexist. Only then can we thrive." They walked in silence for a while, the energy of the palace and gardens calm around them. Then Elira spoke again. "Commander Kyle, you are not like the others who come here. You do not seek praise. You do not fear failure. You act. That is why I find you remarkable." Kyle looked at her, surprised by the sincerity in her tone. "I thank you, Princess. I do what I must. I do not seek recognition. But your words, they mean more than I expected." For a moment, the world outside seemed to fade. Two beings from different worlds, one human, one Letherian, stood together, united by respect and curiosity. Both sensed that this connection could change more than just their personal destinies. It could shape the future of their peoples. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the floating gardens, Elira spoke again. "Tomorrow we will begin preparations for the fleet inspection. I hope you will join me, Commander. Your insight will be valuable." Kale nodded. "I would be honored, Princess. I hope to prove that humans can contribute not just in battle, but in understanding and strategy." Elira studied him for a moment, then smiled faintly. "I believe you already have, Kale, perhaps more than you realize." As they returned to the Grand Hall, the light of Letheria's twin suns reflected off the crystal walls, illuminating the path ahead. The day had been full of first impressions, shared challenges, and moments of mutual respect. Kale had shown his skill and courage, while Elira had revealed wisdom and insight. And yet, neither could ignore the subtle thread forming between them, a quiet admiration, a spark of connection that neither fully understood. Two worlds were learning to trust one another, and the bond between a human warrior and an alien princess was beginning to grow, forged in moments of courage, intelligence, and shared purpose. The stage was set for the challenges to come. Tomorrow would bring more than ceremonies and discussions. It would test their ability to work together, to lead, and perhaps to understand one another in ways neither had imagined. And as the night fell on Letheria, Kale knew that his mission was only beginning. But for the first time, he also felt a sense of hope, not just for victory, but for a future where humans and Letherians could stand side by side, facing the galaxy's dangers together. The Grand Hall, magnificent and awe-inspiring, had become the place where two destinies quietly intertwined, and the first seeds of trust, respect, and perhaps more had been planted. The following morning, Letheria's twin suns rose over the floating mountains, casting golden light across the Grand Hall. Commander Kyle had spent the night reviewing Letherian tactical reports, comparing strategies, and preparing for the day ahead. Though the palace's luxury could have been distracting, Kyle remained focused. The stakes were clear. Letheria faced a threat from the Zarvek's fleet, and every insight he could provide might save countless lives. Princess Elira arrived at the training grounds, her robe flowing like liquid light. "Commander Kale, the Council has requested a demonstration of combined forces," she said. "I want to see how human tactics can integrate with Letherian abilities." Kale nodded, examining the Letherian soldiers as they assembled. Their movements were flawless. Lightning-fast strikes, coordinated maneuvers, and energy manipulation beyond human comprehension. Yet Kale noticed small gaps, moments where instinct could be guided, where strategy could enhance raw skill. "Elira, we need to test adaptability, not just strength," Kale said. "Real battles are unpredictable. Training must account for that." The princess raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You speak as if you have fought countless battles. Do humans truly survive without relying solely on strength?" Kale smiled faintly. "Strength is useful, but it is not everything. Observation, timing, and thinking 2 steps ahead can turn the tide of any fight." Elira studied him, realizing that this human was not only brave but also intelligent in ways Letherians rarely experienced. She had met soldiers from other planets, some skilled, some reckless. But Kale combined courage, patience, and judgment. The exercise began. Kyle led a small team, including Elira, through a simulated invasion scenario. Floating platforms shifted unexpectedly, energy traps activated, and holographic enemies appeared with advanced AI. Lithirians reacted instinctively, their reflexes unmatched. But Kale's presence guided them to anticipate patterns, avoid ambushes, and use terrain advantages. At one point, a simulated energy trap threatened to isolate a Lithirian squad. Kale quickly adjusted their movements, directing them toward a safer path while maintaining a fence. Elira followed his commands, her energy blasts precisely timed with Kale's tactical suggestions. The exercise ended successfully, earning nods of approval from observers. Even the High Council murmured in surprise at how seamlessly human strategy enhanced Lithirian skill. Afterward, Elira approached Kale, her eyes reflecting admiration. "Your methods are unexpected," she said. "You see possibilities where others only see danger. That is why humans are respected in your stories." Kale shook his head. "We make mistakes, Princess, but we learn quickly. Adaptation is our strength, and today you adapted perfectly too. I am impressed by your leadership." Elira's cheeks warmed slightly. No Lithirian had ever praised her so directly, and yet it was not flattery. It was recognition. She found herself enjoying his presence, appreciating his honesty and humility. As they walked back through the palace gardens, a council messenger arrived with urgent news. "Princess Elira, Commander Kale," he said. "Scouts report that a Zarvex reconnaissance fleet is approaching Lithiria's orbit. Their movements are deliberate. They may strike within hours." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Kale's jaw tightened, and Elira's eyes narrowed with focus. "How many ships?" Kale asked. 35, the messenger replied. "They are lightly armed but fast. They could scout our defenses or provoke an early attack." Elira's mind raced. "We must prepare. Kale, I need your insight. How would you handle this scenario?" Kale stepped closer, examining the tactical map projected from the floor. "First, we establish perimeter defenses, combining human energy shields with your planetary barriers. Next, we split our forces strategically, some to engage, some to monitor, and some to strike if they attempt evasive maneuvers. Finally, I would use decoys to test their intelligence without committing our full fleet." Elira nodded, impressed by his clear thinking. "And our Lithirian warriors?" "They are unmatched in combat skill," Kale said. "But their instinct-driven methods can be predicted by the enemy. We blend instinct with planning, and we have a strong advantage." The princess studied him, realizing that Kale's calm and decisive thinking brought something new to her people, an approach that could save lives without diminishing the skill and honor of Lithirian warriors. "Then we will follow your plan," she said. "With your help, I believe we can succeed." Kale felt a quiet respect for her growing as well. Elira was not only a princess, but a strategist, capable of thinking critically under pressure. Her leadership inspired her people, and she trusted his judgment without hesitation. In that moment, he understood why humans admired Lithirians for their discipline and why Lithirians could respect humans for their adaptability. As they coordinated defenses, Kale noticed Elira watching him closely, not just for his tactical advice, but for his reactions, how he remained composed despite the tension, how he considered each choice carefully. She was learning not just from his plan, but from his demeanor, understanding the human approach to courage and patience. Hours passed as they prepared. The human and Lithirian forces moved in synchrony, energy barriers rising, reconnaissance, drone scanning, and decoys positioned to mislead the enemy. Kale and Elira spent every moment together, analyzing data, discussing options, and adjusting strategies. Their conversations shifted seamlessly between technical details and personal observations, forming a bond strengthened by shared responsibility. When the Zarvex fleet finally appeared in Lithiria's orbit, Kale and Elira were ready. Sensors detected the enemy ships moving in formation, probing defenses with quick, calculated strikes. Kale observed patterns in their movements, anticipating their next maneuvers. "Deploy the decoys now," he instructed. "Force them to reveal their priorities." Elira nodded and activated the decoys, sending small holographic ships into orbit. The Zarvex fleet reacted immediately, attacking the decoys with predictable aggression. Kale's plan worked perfectly. The enemy revealed their weaknesses without threatening Letheria's cities or fleets. The princess watched with quiet admiration as Kale coordinated responses, adjusting placements, directing energy barriers, and communicating with both human and Letherian forces. She realized that this human warrior was not just a guest or ally. He was someone who could inspire confidence, even in the most tense moments. After hours of careful observation, the Zarvex reconnaissance fleet retreated, unable to breach Letheria's defenses or gather useful intelligence. The combined forces of humans and Letherians had succeeded without unnecessary losses. Elira turned to Kale, her eyes reflecting both relief and admiration. "You have done more than I expected, Commander. Your insight saved lives today." Kale shook his head modestly. "We did it together, Princess. Your people's skill, your leadership, and the human contribution, all of it mattered equally." For a long moment they stood together, watching the distant enemy retreat. In that shared silence, a subtle understanding passed between them. Courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome challenges that seemed impossible. Their bond, formed in mutual respect and shared responsibility, had grown stronger than either had anticipated. As night fell over Letheria, Kale and Elira walked back through the palace gardens, their conversation lighter now, filled with curiosity about each other's worlds, histories, and dreams. Elira laughed softly at some of Kale's stories of human culture, while he marveled at the complexity and beauty of Letherian traditions. In those quiet moments, away from alarms, strategies, and responsibilities, a personal connection began to flourish. Both sensed it but did not name it. It was a bond born of shared challenge, respect, and the recognition of qualities in the other that mirrored their own ideals: courage, honor, and dedication. By the time they returned to the Grand Hall, Kale knew one thing clearly: the challenges facing Letheria would be many. But with Elira's trust and the growing alliance between their peoples, they had a chance to face them, and perhaps to inspire each other along the way. The first sparks of friendship, admiration, and unspoken understanding had been kindled. The human warrior and the alien princess had faced danger together, strategized side by side, and seen the strength and value in each other. The journey ahead promised more trials, more battles, and deeper understanding. But for now, in the quiet glow of Letheria's twin moons, Kale and Elira walked side by side, knowing that together they could face anything that came next. And so, the bond between two worlds, two warriors, and two hearts quietly began to grow, stronger, setting the stage for challenges that would test their courage, intelligence, and trust like never before. The twin suns of Letheria had barely risen when the alarms blared across the Grand Hall. Commander Kale, already dressed in his tactical suit, moved quickly to the command platform. Sensors showed the Zarvex fleet entering Letherian orbit, their ship sleek, dark, and menacing against the vibrant backdrop of the planet below. Princess Elira stood beside him, her expression calm but resolute. "They have come sooner than expected," she said, her voice steady. "Kale, we must defend Letheria. Are your forces ready?" Kale's jaw tightened. "We are ready, but this will test both human tactics and Letherian skill. We must combine our strengths perfectly if we are to succeed." Elira nodded. She had grown to trust Kale's judgment over the past days, and she relied on his insight now more than ever. Together they reviewed the defense strategy one last time. Human energy shields were paired with Letherian barriers, and their combined fleets positioned to cover key approaches. Kale's decoys were ready to confuse the enemy, while Elira's warriors prepared for rapid deployment. As the enemy ships approached, Kale noticed the Zarvex tactics immediately. The fleet moved in coordinated waves, probing for weak points, but their attacks were precise, not reckless. Kale's instincts told him that a direct confrontation would be costly. Instead, he suggested a flanking maneuver combined with the decoys to draw the enemy into traps. "Follow my lead," Kale instructed, turning to the human pilots and Letherian captains. "Trust your instincts, but coordinate with the team. Timing will be everything." Elira's fleet followed his directions, moving with grace and deadly precision. Energy barriers shimmered as enemy ships fired plasma cannons, and human fighters darted through the chaos, dodging attacks while striking vulnerable points. Kale's plan worked seamlessly. The decoys forced the Zarvex into overextending their formation, giving Letherian and human forces openings for counterattacks. From the Grand Hall command platform, Elira watched the battle unfold below. Every movement, every decision reflected Kale's calm and decisive mind. She had fought alongside many warriors, but Kale's approach combined intelligence, adaptability, and courage in a way she had never seen. At one point, an enemy squadron broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the central energy cores that powered Letheria's floating cities. Kale's face hardened. "I'm going after them," he said, strapping himself into an interceptor craft. Elira's eyes widened. "Kale, it's dangerous." "You could be surrounded." "I have to stop them," he replied firmly. "We cannot let the core fall." Elira hesitated only for a moment before speaking. "I'm coming with you. We face this together." Side by side, they launched into space. Letherian energy bursts and human projectiles lit the sky as the two forces engaged the enemy. Kale's piloting was precise, weaving between attacks while Elira's energy manipulation disrupted the enemy's formations. Their teamwork was flawless, each anticipating the other's moves as though they had fought together for years. During a critical moment, an enemy ship targeted Elira directly. Kale noticed the attack too late to intercept normally, but he did not hesitate. With expert maneuvering, he placed his craft between her and the incoming fire, taking the blast directly on his shields. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but Kale maintained control and Elira was unharmed. Elira's heart raced and her eyes met his in a brief, intense moment. "Kyle!" she shouted, relief and admiration mixing in her voice. Kyle gave a small nod, refusing to smile, yet feeling a quiet satisfaction. "Stay focused, Princess. The fight isn't over." They pressed on, coordinating attacks that forced the Zarvex squadron into disarray. Letherian warriors on the ground adjusted their energy barriers to support them, while human pilots executed flanking maneuvers suggested by Kale. Slowly but surely, the enemy's momentum faltered. Back at the Grand Hall, the remaining fleet watched and followed Kale's strategy, striking with precision and minimizing losses. The combination of human adaptability and Letherian skill proved stronger than the Zarvex anticipated. Hours passed, and the sky above Letheria was littered with debris from defeated enemy ships. Kale and Elira regrouped, their ships gliding safely back to the palace. Both were tired, yet their minds were alert, processing the battle's outcome and preparing for possible counterattacks. Elira turned to Kale, her eyes reflecting both exhaustion and deep respect. "You saved countless lives today," she said softly. "Your courage, your strategy. It was remarkable." Kale shook his head. "We did it together, Princess. Your leadership inspired your people to fight beyond expectation. Humans and Letherians side by side, we made this possible." For a long moment, neither spoke. The twin suns dipped toward the horizon, casting golden light across the Grand Hall as if acknowledging their victory. The planet had survived the first wave of attacks, but both Kale and Elira knew this was only the beginning. Later, in the palace gardens, they found a quiet spot to reflect. The air was cool and the floating plants glowed softly, offering a serene contrast to the chaos of battle. Elira sat on a low crystal bench and Kale joined her. "You were incredible," she said, watching the way his armor reflected the ambient light. "Most humans would panic in such a situation. You remained calm, decisive, and precise." Kale looked at her, admiration in his eyes. "And you," he replied, "led your people with confidence and courage. You inspired them to fight as one. Without your direction, we could have lost more than just ships today." Elira smiled faintly, the tension of the day easing slightly. "It seems humans and Letherians are stronger together than apart," she said thoughtfully. "Perhaps this is more than a temporary alliance." Kyle nodded. "Perhaps. I've seen strength in many forms, Princess. Your people have it in abundance, but combined with humanity's adaptability, I think we could face almost anything." Their conversation drifted to lighter topics, but the bond between them had grown stronger in the heat of battle. Trust had been proven, respect had been earned, and admiration had blossomed quietly, like a seed nurtured in fertile soil. The night fell over Letheria, and the palace remained calm for the first time in days. Yet Kale and Elira both understood that the Zarvex fleet was still a threat. They would need to continue training, strategizing, and working together if they were to protect the planet and ensure the safety of their people. As they looked out over the glowing city below, Kale said quietly, "Tomorrow we prepare again. But tonight, we can rest. We've earned it." Elira nodded, her gaze lingering on him for a moment longer than necessary. "Yes, and Kale, thank you for standing with us, for believing in Letheria." Kale's expression softened. "And thank you, Princess, for trusting me. That means more than I can say." For a moment, the noise of alarms, battle, and war faded away. Two warriors, from two very different worlds, had faced danger together, saved lives, and discovered a quiet connection in the process. Respect had grown into trust had grown into admiration, and admiration had laid the foundation for something deeper, a bond that could shape not only their destinies but the future of their worlds. As the twin moons rose over Letheria, casting silver light across the floating gardens, Kale and Elira stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Yet in each other they had found courage, partnership, and the knowledge that together they could endure anything. And so, the story of the human warrior and the alien princess moved forward. Two hearts, two worlds, and a growing bond tested by fire, yet strengthened by shared challenge, bravery, and trust. The battle had ended, but the aftermath was still unfolding across Letheria. Debris from the Zarvex fleet floated in orbit, and the city below was bustling with repairs and celebrations. Commander Kale stood on the balcony of the Grand Hall, gazing at the glowing platforms and shimmering energy fields. His mind was still sharp from the fight, but he allowed himself a rare moment of calm. Princess Elira joined him, her flowing robes glowing softly in the moonlight. She had just returned from overseeing the rebuilding of several energy nodes damaged during the skirmish. Her eyes reflected pride, relief, and something else. Something that Kale felt but did not yet name. "You have done more than anyone could expect," she said, her voice quiet yet firm. "Your strategies saved Letheria today, and not just the city, our people's lives, their hope, everything we value." Kyle shook his head slightly. "We did it together, Princess. Your warriors, your people, and humanity, all of us side by side. We succeeded because we trusted each other." Elira's gaze softened. "Yes, trust. And courage. I have learned much from you, Kale. About humans, about thinking beyond instinct, about acting with both honor and strategy. I believe Letheria is stronger because of you." Kale felt a warmth in her words. The recognition of his effort, combined with the respect in her eyes, was unlike anything he had experienced. For centuries, humans had often been underestimated by other civilizations. Yet here, on this distant planet, a leader not only acknowledged his contribution but trusted him implicitly. The palace echoed with the sounds of celebrations. Citizens had gathered in the floating plazas, cheering for their victorious defenders. The High Council called for a formal recognition of bravery, and Kale knew he would be honored alongside Letherian heroes. "Shall we attend together?" Elira asked, extending her hand. Kale accepted it, feeling a strange but pleasant electricity in the contact. Together they walked down the glowing corridors, the hum of Letheria's energy systems underfoot, the city alive with light and movement. In the Grand Hall, dignitaries, soldiers, and citizens gathered. The High Council stepped forward and Elira spoke first. "Today Letheria faced a threat unlike any before. Thanks to the courage and strategy of our people, and the guidance and bravery of our human allies, we have survived and prevailed. Commander Kale, your name will be remembered alongside our greatest heroes." Kale felt the weight of their attention, but he did not bow in arrogance. "Thank you," he said simply. "I stand here not as one alone, but as part of a combined effort. Humans and Letherians fought together today, and that is the reason for our victory." Applause filled the hall, and Kale caught Elira's eyes. She nodded slightly, her expression warm and proud. It was a moment of recognition, yes, but also of connection, of shared accomplishment, and of respect that transcended species and worlds. After the ceremony, Kale and Elira retreated to the palace gardens. The air was calm, filled with the soft glow of floating flora and the gentle trickle of reversed rivers. For the first time since his arrival, Kale allowed himself to relax fully. "You did not have to risk yourself today," Illyra said softly, her eyes meeting his. "Yet you did, without hesitation, without fear. That is rare, even among Litherians." Kale shook his head. "Courage is not about not feeling fear. It is about doing what must be done despite it. You taught me much about leadership today as well, Princess. The way you commanded your people. It inspired me." Illyra's smile was gentle. "And you inspired me, Kyle. Humans think differently, act differently, and yet you proved that we are not so different after all. Strength, courage, and honor, they are universal." They walked through the gardens in silence for a few moments, each thinking of the battle and the journey that had brought them here. The night air was calm, the stars reflected in Litheria's floating rivers, and the planet itself seemed to breathe in peace after chaos. "You know," Kale said finally, "I came here expecting to help, to fight, to protect, but I did not expect to find understanding, or someone who could see me as more than just a human soldier." Illyra's gaze softened and she stepped closer. "Kyle, you are more than a soldier. You are courageous, wise, and honorable, and in those qualities you have earned my admiration, my trust, perhaps even something more." Kale's heart skipped, though he kept his composure. "Illyra, I feel the same. In these days I have seen your courage, your wisdom, and your heart. You have inspired me to believe that humans and Litherians can not only fight together but also understand each other in ways I never imagined." A quiet smile passed between them. For a long moment no words were needed. The connection they had forged in the fires of battle, in shared strategy and risk, now deepened into something personal, something lasting. The following days were filled with rebuilding, training, and preparation. Kale worked alongside Litherian engineers, helping to reinforce energy barriers, improve fleet coordination, and train soldiers in combined tactics. Illyra continued to lead her people with grace, now consulting Kale on plans and strategies that incorporated human ingenuity. Through these days, their bond grew. They shared meals in the palace gardens, discussed their homeworlds, and learned from each other's cultures. Illyra was fascinated by human resilience and adaptability, while Kale admired Litheria's precision, discipline, and unity. In quiet moments, they found joy in simple things, watching the floating rivers, exploring gardens, or discussing the stars above their worlds. One evening, as the twin moons rose over Litheria, Illyra and Kale stood on a balcony overlooking the city. "Tomorrow we return to the High Council for final plans against the Zarvex fleet," Illyra said. "But tonight, I want to simply be here with you and appreciate what we have accomplished." Kale nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I agree, Princess. Moments like this, they remind us why we fight, why we protect, and why we trust each other." Illyra reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. It was a small gesture, yet it carried meaning, trust, respect, and a shared future. Kale squeezed her hand gently, understanding that this bond was no longer just about alliance or strategy. It was personal, profound, and unshakable. The next morning, the High Council convened. Kale and Illyra presented detailed plans for the combined human-Litherian fleet. Their strategies incorporated lessons learned from their recent battles, emphasizing coordination, adaptability, and shared leadership. The Council approved their plans unanimously, recognizing that unity between humans and Litherians had created a force stronger than either could achieve alone. After the meeting, Kale and Illyra walked through the palace halls, now filled with a sense of calm achievement. Citizens passed by, bowing in respect, and warriors of both species gave quiet nods of acknowledgement. Kale realized that the human presence on Litheria was no longer foreign. It was valued, trusted, and integrated. Illyra turned to him, her eyes bright with pride. "Kyle, I believe this is only the beginning. Humanity and Litheria, together we can face any threat, protect our people, and perhaps even build a lasting bond between our worlds." Kale smiled. "I believe that too, Princess. And I hope that our bond, forged in courage and respect, will continue beyond strategy and battle, that it will be something enduring, like the partnership between our people." Illyra's hand found his again, and she smiled softly. "Yes, Kale, I think it already has." The twin moons rose high over Litheria, casting silver light over the city. The Grand Hall stood majestic. The floating gardens glowed softly, and the planet itself seemed to hum with new energy. a future of hope, unity, and trust. Commander Kale and Princess Elira stood together, side by side looking toward the stars. They had faced danger, overcome challenges, and forged a bond that transcended worlds. Lytheria had survived the first wave of threats. Humans had earned trust and respect, and two hearts from two different worlds had discovered understanding, admiration, and perhaps even love. The journey ahead would bring new challenges, new battles, and new responsibilities. But Kale and Elira knew one thing for certain. Together they could face anything. Humanity and Lytheria were stronger united, and their bond, personal and political, would inspire generations to come. As dawn broke, painting the floating cities in golden light, Kale and Elira clasped hands and stepped forward, ready to lead their people, protect their worlds, and embrace the new future they had built together. The story of the human warrior and the alien princess had reached a victorious conclusion, not just in battle, but in unity, respect, and the quiet promise of something enduring between two worlds.